Excellent. Well, thank you all for being here. This is the first of our regular Connect Editor Forums. We're introducing these in addition to the editor resources that are available on Connect, just to make sure that we give you support as editors and have this kind of ongoing dialogue. We don't want you to take part in training and then sort of go off on to your own devices and feel like you haven't got that support or someone you can come back to and ask questions of. We kind of rely on you really to make sure that Connect remains up to date and relevant for staff for the areas that you look after. As I mentioned, we'll record today's session. We are going to share the recording and the notes of the session with everybody, partly so if you want to come back and review it, you can, but also for those that couldn't make it today. So I think we have a good amount of editors helping us keep Connect up to date. Things that we're going to cover today, enhancements that have been included in Wagtail since the launch in January, the timing of the decommissioning of old Connect and the portal page, enhancements that are in plan and hopefully to be launched soon. Just a reminder around best practice in terms of creating content on Connect, and chance at the end to have a bit of feedback from you and discussion and questions. So I will hand over to Simon for the enhancements since launch.
Hey Tony, I'm just admitting some people just now. So I'm going to share my screen and hopefully most of you will know the main enhancement that we've had is the launch of access to Connect from outside of the CUH network. Now, internally, we kind of call this single sign-on, and that's largely because it's an NHS mail product. So the sort of solution that we use for our email, nhs.net email addresses, it's their sign-on service, and they call it NHS Mail Single Sign-On. But for us, we're kind of using it to access Connect intranet from anywhere. So it's a remote access solution, but moving forward, it's also going to be a solution that we can use for additional functionality on Connect. So the first thing I'm going to show you is just remote access. So how we use it. At the moment, I'm on BYOD, so I've got my personal browser here. I'm out, so they're not connected to the CUH network. If I type in CUH Connect, it's taking me to this NHS Mail login address, login screen, which is going to be familiar for any of us who have used NHS Mail via a webmail client. So right now I type in my email address, and I've got to stop talking while I do it. Now I've got multi-factor authentication set up, which many of us won't have. So if you're seeing this, don't worry, this isn't sort of unique to this service. It's just because of the way I've got my email configured. So I've just got to go through this additional step. It's worth calling out, though, this multi-factor is probably going to be something we all have to do in the months ahead. I think it's an NHS England initiative that it's something we all use, but it's optional at the moment. So like I said, just bear with me. I've just got to authenticate offline on my phone. And so I've now done that, and this is going to finish processing. And if it works, it should just drop me onto the Connect homepage. I can see the little wheel sitting up top, and here it is. So I'm now seeing Connect without being connected to the CUH network. So that's sort of like a real improvement and a step change from what we had on old Connect. We kind of had an in-between solution during the pandemic, where basically we stood up a website that was accessible to everyone on the internet rather. So it was great in terms of accessibility for staff. It was really poor in terms of security for so trust sort of information that we'd want to keep really out of general populace or general consumption. Because at that point we had no way of controlling who had access to it. So this is sort of our middle ground. Basically, we'll have the solution that is available to everyone so long as they've got the right credentials, which is basically an nhs.net email address that's assigned to CUH. So if there was someone in another organisation, they've got NHS If they tried that same process, it would basically fail for them because it's not a CUH assigned email address. But for me and for all of us, it's worked. So I get through and then I see Connect and it's fully browsable and fully accessible. I'm just going to caveat that to say, whilst Connect is going to be available and is available now to everyone everywhere, there's still systems like Merlin, actually the IT service portal, that they're still behind the CUH firewall or to sort of have restrictions around them from where they can be accessed from. So if I click on this now, it's just going to spin and time out. Basically, we're working with the vendor at the moment to get like a pop-up that will appear to actually tell users you've clicked on a link for a system that's inaccessible or unavailable from outside of the CUH network. But at the moment, it just sort of goes through this timeout process. So once we've got that new pop out, I think we'll see like a fresh round of communication around this. We'll start to promote it more within Facebook to let people know that this is a method of accessing Connect from anywhere. So that's a sort of the most powerful and sort of useful element of single sign-on, or the login to Connect that we've now got. But for us as editors, there's also a sort of shorthand function that we've now got available to us, which I've logged in and I'm an editor. I'm seeing this little wagtail icon in the bottom right of the screen, which is hopefully showing up. This is unique to us as editors. What we'll see if there's a regular user who's logged in and not an editor, they don't see this little wagtail icon. But
I think we've lost Simon. Give him a second and see if he reappears. Unless it's me. Has everyone else lost Simon?
Yes.
Yeah, nods. Okay.
Yes.
So what Simon was saying there is, as an editor, you will see this wagtail icon here, but usual users won't. And it means that when you're on a page, so you could be browsing through Connect, looking at your particular pages, you can click on this wagtail icon here and edit that page. It will give you the option to go into the wagtail admin or go directly to edit that page, which is a nice kind of shortcut through for you. As we've lost Simon for the moment, he'll probably try and rejoin. I'll hop on to the bit that I was going to cover, which was around decommissioning of old Connect and the CP portal. And I'll try and get an example of that CP portal. It's basically the one that had all of the links. I might not have access to it anymore, but I'll try and get that one. So I know it's appearing on some screens still, particularly when I'm in the office, I still get that. But in terms of decommissioning old Connect, we're planning to start that from July. So the ask of editors is that all content that you would want to be migrated from old Connect is moved over by the 30th of June. I know a lot of you have already started that work and are well through that work. What I would say is if that causes any major panics amongst you, please get in touch with us and let us know what support you might need to be able to make that happen. And we'll do what we can. Lizzie.
Hi, just because I'm a bit compulsive about things like this. Is there any benefit if I go through my pages and where I see that the pages are okay on the new Connect, actually removing them or deleting them myself? Would that make? I mean, I know our pages are tiny compared to the whole of Connect, but if I delete our old pages, then that's less for you to do.
So we won't be deleting page by page. The whole system will go.
Oh, so it wouldn't make any. Okay, that's fine.
It wouldn't make any difference if your pages were gone. We will decommission the whole. So it's on an unsupported platform at the moment, and it's they basically want to turn the server off that it's on. Simon would say that in much more technical language, but that's the gist of it. We need to shut that system down, so it wouldn't make a difference for kind of deleting old pages. Katie.
Just a point, just on the decommissioning strategy, there are quite a lot of links that are in Epic that link
Yes.
to Old
Yeah,
Connect.
yours is a key dependency.
So it's
That's
not-
a key dependency.
So it's not just links out of Epic that link into things that are specifically to do with IT. We've pulled an extract from Epic and there are a lot of links in there for things like, for example, infection control policies, which, to be quite honest, should be on Merlin anyway, but it covers all areas basically. So we just need to, we're having a little look at the spreadsheet and seeing what we can do sort of centrally from an e-hospital team. But there is quite a lot that sits outside of that for various areas to look to see whether it's still relevant and we need that link in Epic, or whether it's moved to a new, where it needs to go to, whether that's Merlin or new pages on Connect. So we just need to think about
That's fine. It
in terms of
is very
decommissioning.
much on Simon's radar, as that is a key dependency before Connect goes. So if you pick up separately with Simon on the spreadsheet, and where we can help, we will, and where there are other things, we'll pick that up.
Yeah, super.
I think
just
I think
want
as
Old
well.
Connect to disappear when we've still got the Epic links that we just need to figure that out as well.
We've definitely got that as a dependency. I think Simon will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is the key dependency from our point of view.
It is, and I think as you were sort of describing it yesterday, Tony, when we were discussing it, that having this focus on making sure everyone's key content is brought across, you know, by the end of this month, that's a precursor, I think, to what you were describing, Katie, to then knowing, well, what links do we see within Epic that are still pointing to content that hopefully has already been brought across because of this focus on it for this month. But then anything that's an outlier, we pick up before the actual power off would occur. And apologies, everyone, my internet connection dropped out while I was running through my demo.
That's all right. We'll come back to you, Simon. I just skipped on to the next agenda item. Yeah. Alison, you had a question.
Yeah, hi. It was just for you, you guys, Tony, really virtual backgrounds. I just noticed that the new Connect doesn't have, it has it on your corporate identity, but when you go onto it, it says there's no downloads at the moment. And I refer to this a lot because with recruitment selection training and our admin academy people, I do refer to it, especially if people are doing virtual interviews. You know, they might like to have the corporate background. So can I just a little nudge for you to put the virtual backgrounds on the new Connect, please? Thank you.
I think we're actually creating some new ones as well. So,
okay.
But we'll, but that might have been the, but I've added it to my list.
Lovely. Yeah, even if you just put a couple of the old ones up at the moment, because people are doing virtual interviews and they like to have the corporate look. So,
are you getting nice those from Old Connect? Because I know they're on the portal. Are they on Old Connect?
Yeah, they are. It's just when you go to the new Connect and you click on it, there's nothing there at the moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will take that away. Thank you. Were there any other questions? I don't think there were. So if after this meeting you want to come back to us with any kind of flags or any issues with the 30th of June, please. Oh, Fee.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that there was a shortcut to Wagtail on the CUH Connect page, but I can't see it. Where is it?
That was what Simon was just demoing. Once you're signed in, so I hand back to Simon. And Simon, do you want to take off from where
Sorry, it's just me being stupid, probably, but I can't see it.
No, not at all. It might be that you're not logged into Connect from the front end. You might be as an admin, so which was one of the confusions that's come up now that we've got this single sign on. Hopefully Simon will make these much clearer.
That's a good point, though. It is a really good point, and I've maybe jumped ahead because I was wanting to show you sort of a neat feature when you are signed in via that NHS Mail single sign-on approach, how it took me to that NHS Mail sign-on screen, putting my credentials, logged in. Down my bottom right-hand corner,
got it.
You're seeing it? Yeah, this little wagtail icon. And so if you're on a page, so Fee could be on a page that she's sort of looking to edit, rather than needing to kind of go to the actual login screen. So if I'm back to the Connect homepage, a way to get to that admin login screen would be go to View All Apps, click on W for Wagtail, kind of go to this button here. Rather than going through that process, I could perhaps be on the screen that I want to edit and make changes to. I can hover over that little Wagtail icon in the bottom right, click on that, and then if I've got editor permissions for the page, I'll see the edit option, edit this page. If you're on a page which isn't yours, you don't have permissions for, I think you'll just see go to Wagtail admin. So it's still a quick shortcut just to get into this Wagtail admin console. But if you're actually wanting to make changes to the page itself, you can just click edit this page and it takes you straight into this sort of to the page editing layout itself, which is a real, to my mind, it's just a real sort of improvement and a speedy way to get to things. Now, that was with me sort of logging into single sign-on first. If I, and actually we're seeing my initials up here in the top right corner as well to show me that I'm logged in. If I was just a general user, at the moment you could think, other than just having remote access, kind of, is there a point for them logging in? For a user, a general user at the moment, the answer is no. But in the sort of next week or two, we're going to actually launch the accommodation boards and swap shop notice boards onto Connect. Currently, they're hosted externally as well. They're on that that platform that was stood up during the pandemic. But we're going to be bringing them onto New Connect. But if someone's wanting to post an ad or list some items, things like that, they'll need to be logged in because there needs to be a mechanism to have them be contacted and to maintain the ad, to either keep it refreshed or delete it, things like that. So that then requires a login of presence. So we'll start to see users other than just remote users. So they could be on campus accessing Connect, and they may start to actually go through this login process. And for ourselves as well as editors, I think there's still I'm going to log out of this now, and it takes me back to just this generic login, log out screen. For me, actually, I'm on BYD, so let me go out of this page and into my okay. So this is what it would be when I'm logged out. I don't any longer see the little wagtail icon on the bottom right. I don't see my initials up top here. If I now go to Wagtail, let's just say I want to log in as my admin. What I was just wondering, now I log into this screen, I go back to my Connect page. Okay, now I am seeing the little icon down the bottom. I wasn't sure then if I hadn't used single sign-on, whether I'd still see the Wagtail little button down the bottom. Seems to have drifted a little bit out of my screen, but anyway, we do still see it. So you do see it in both instances, but there's a real benefit to just being signed in via single sign-on first, rather than using the sort of native Wagtail login screen. And I realized now that I skipped over something, that I'm going to go back to finding my button. How do I log into Wagtail? I go to there. Down the bottom here, we see log into SSO. So that is, like I said, we're calling it SSO almost for shorthand because that's what the product is. But for us, it's just logging into Connect. So if we use this button, I click on that, it would then take us to this screen. So you might find that's sort of like a nice consistent approach. You don't then need to have separate passwords or worry about maintaining a password for Wagtail and a password for your NHS Mail. Just use your NHS Mail to log into Connect, and then that logs you into Wagtail to your editing console as well. So that's sort of like an approach that I think you're going to start seeing reflected in the training document and the support documents we've got for editors. And that's kind of why you're going to see it. And then another thing that I meant to update us on is just do this again, is the enhancement around tables. So some of us would have seen on some of the more recent training sessions that the tables, initially when we were rolling out New Connect and Wagtail, there was a limit on tables not being able to include hyperlinks. So, you know, an email address or a web address or URL, something like that, was in basically this format, the standard format. And if we put this in, you can put in the words, the text for that thing, but then there was no way of actually making that a link, something that a user could click on and it would automatically open their browser. So what the vendor for Wagtail has given us at this stage is something called the rich text table. So we now see there's two options in tables. And if we click on this, we now do get the option of having hyperlinks or clickable links that we can include in our tables. The downside is you've got to build that table cell by cell or row by row effectively. So I've kind of added this and we see one cell has appeared here. If I wanted to, if I kind of wanted to replicate the table that we see above, so I want three columns and 3 rows, I've got to add each column first, and then I've got to add each row. So it's a more time consuming way to build a table. But the upshot is that if I actually had simon@email.com, that I can now actually select this text, then we see this familiar pop-up that's got this little link icon. I can click on this, and now I can actually make this a hyperlink for an email address or a web address, or any sort of like clickable link then becomes available to us on this rich text format. So I won't say this is a work in progress, but we don't really want this to be our endpoint with tables. We do want to kind of improve the user experience with them to bring it closer to what it is here, where we can just copy and paste in large sections of information and then perhaps highlight the bits that we want and make them links, things like that. But we don't have that yet. It's not functionality they have available. This was something they had available and they could deliver to us quite quickly. So that's why we've gone for this. And this is what we will be using for the near term anyway, if you're needing to create tables with links. So that was another enhancement that we've got. And
Just can I just come in, because I know Catherine, you said that looks good. I think it works when you don't have a lot of content. If you had a table full of multiple cells that you were hoping to copy and paste across, this is much more resource intensive than we would hope it would be, and that's certainly that's the discussion we're having with the vendor at the moment, is how we get the kind of ease of the simple one, but with all the rich text. So we know it's not perfect, but it is better than what we did have.
Then you're right. Is that it for the? Oh no, I was going to talk about upgrades that will be happening. Is that it? And then future enhancements about down the track.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I think I've
Yep.
covered the decommissioning bit. So yeah, on to upcoming enhancements would be good. Thank you.
Nice one. Okay, so we've got. I talked about logging in for users, future sort of need use cases where they might need to log in. That's going to be around. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find out our staging, our test site effectively. That's going to be around things where they want to list something on, say, SwapShop. So if I type this in, none of this is live. This is all in the test environment that we've got at the moment. And it's going to look pretty scrappy, actually, for that matter. But it gives you a sense of what it's going to look like when it does go live in the next couple of weeks. So, you know, SwapShop branding as we see it, it's going to be an unremarkable listing, but it will just have the things that we currently use where departments or teams or anything they've got something that they no longer need, rather than just throwing it in the rubbish. It's something that they can list on this platform, and other staff will be able to sort of get in there and you know, collect it, find the details for it. Like I said, all of this is just sort of test information, so I don't have actually a nice listing we can look at. That's the gist of it. You know, there'll be a contact number, the HR number for where it would need to be collected from, the things that someone would need in order to call up facilities and then have a porter come and collect it and move it if that's how it's going to work, or go and collect it themselves. And then the other one, which is using almost the same engine, is going to be the accommodation listings. So at the moment, I think on the external site, we've got accommodate. What's it called? I think it's the marketplace, CUH marketplace. And accommodation is another thing that people can list their properties. They can look for property offered, property wanted, things like that. And this will be the same thing. So again, users will need to be logged in to engage, or to not to engage. Anyone can read it and anyone can grab the details from it. But if someone's wanting to list it and manage an advertisement on it, then they'll need to be logged in using the single sign-on. What was the other one? And news. Do I have? Let me see. Another reason for being logged in will be commenting on news articles. So this should be one. No, it's not. It's this one. Yeah. So we again test data. This is all sort of garbage, but you can see here it is. It's things that we're familiar with, we would have seen on any sort of newspaper sites, but hopefully this is going to allow users to engage with what they're seeing and just help the trust understand better, like what responses to certain announcements are being, whether they're getting any sort of engagement, generating comment, things like that. So that will be another thing that being signed in via single sign-on will be required for. So they're future things that we're going to look to roll out over the next couple of weeks. In sort of not in tandem with it, but over this similar time frame, there's going to be updates happening to Wagtail itself, so the platform that we use. These are going to be significant updates in terms of our editor experience. It's not going to change the look and feel or anything like that. What I've tried to do here, and I can only do it if I was logged in. So one, I think, is to worth recapping it. One will let you know as editors when these updates are going to take place and what the implication would be in terms of downtime. Typically, it's really small. We're talking a minute or two, and it will be scheduled at a time that's not overly disruptive. It will give you lead time on when that's going to happen. I think as well, it'll be useful just to, in that communication, sort of summarize for you what some of the key points are, because some will be fairly abstract and really meaningless to us because it's something affecting something in the back end that we don't engage with, but some things could be useful for us. But when that sort of update happens in notification, I think we'll just include a reminder that you can see what the features for the latest update will be via the help menu. At the moment, this has still got the previous update, so it's not changed to what the new ones will be. But if you do sort of like need to understand things more, you want to dig deeper into it, then this is where you're going to be able to find the details. And we'll also include a link of what a link to information for the future updates and what they're going to be. Yeah, so that's something again that's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So when you hear that a Wagtail upgrade is taking place, kind of have a frame of reference. That's what it is. It's low impact on us. There could be some nice things that will kind of change or improve our experience. Rich text. I'm not sure what this means. This was the old one, but things like that. If there's things that we think, oh, this is good and worthwhile for us as editors to be aware of, we'll kind of call that out in our comms. Okay, so I think that was it. I think that was it. Is that it, Tony? Or was it for me?
There's a question about popular apps, Simon, on the staging.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I see ClickView is on the test site under popular apps. Will that be added to the live site too?
So I'd say sadly no. I don't think it has the sort of user numbers at this stage to go through. Why that is showing on the test site was because of that linking to systems that are behind the CUH firewall. So like I said, we kind of want it so that if someone's logged in out of the CUH network, they're using single sign-on. If they click on a link to a system like ClickView, like Merlin, they actually get a pop-up, and it doesn't instead open a browser window that just times out, because we're finding that's kind of confusing for users. They might think their internet connection's down or some other issue has occurred, rather than actually being known behavior, i.e. it's behind the CUH firewall, you can't access it because you're outside of the network. So that's why we had ClickView in our app panel, because we want to use it in our test case. Yeah, so there will be some changes to the app panel on our main page again over the next couple of weeks. This all ties in with the changes that the vendor make. They basically they merge them all together. They'll test deploy them into our staging environment, and then they'll deploy them for real into our production environment that we all use. And so that sort of change suite is going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So we will note it. Oh, what am I trying to do here? I'm on the home page. Yeah, I need to be on this one. So we will see this popular apps panel change. They'll be brought into alphabetical order, because at the moment they were kind of chunked somewhat in a non-clinical clinical grouping, and even within the non-clinical it wasn't actually alphabetical. But these will be made alphabetical order, and we will be increasing the number that are here, but it's driven by, at the moment, the sort of the user numbers. And so DOT is one which will be included in this, and I think there's another clinical app that will be included as well. And that's it, I think, for the apps panel.
Lovely, thank you, Simon. There was a question about moderation of editor posts, and that is continuing. We do imagine that continuing, just so it's particularly in these early stages, but I think it's something we'll review as we go forward, and part of that is a bit of quality control and making sure that we're following best practice, which I'll come on to. We do try and get to them as quickly as, I say we, Simon and Joe. By the time I look at them, I think usually Simon's already got to them, so we try and get to them quickly. If you find that you're editing something and you need it to go live like straight away, please get in touch with us, send us a note on Teams to say I'm just working on this and I really need you to look at it urgently, and we'll do our best to do that. Otherwise we try and do it within 2 working days.
I think just with that, just prior to this call, I was kind of looking at it because I've had some comms, I think, with Fee, just around when approvals take place, or when you've got something in your queue waiting for moderator's approval. Unfortunately, this dashboard doesn't automatically refresh. So if you've kind of submitted something, you'll see it basically up here. Let me bring up my other screen, which hopefully will show it. That. What have I done? So we'll see here in your workflow. So, you know, this is mine. I was doing a test page just to see what we as editors see when we've submitted something for moderation. So this is one which I test submitted it more or less to myself, looked at it, and then I made a request for some changes on it. And Tim, I kind of did this for you this morning on one of your pages, and I wasn't sure. It's like, how do we as editors see it if there's comments that have come through? So it's 2 steps, basically. What you will see is this little exclamation mark saying changes requested at moderator's approval. But then it doesn't tell you what those changes are. So what you then need to do is go to your reports. So we'll all see this on the left-hand side in our columns. We click on reports, and then we click on workflows. And then you'll see the reports that are, or the workflows that are relevant to you. And then here, this is the one I test submitted. It hasn't been approved, hasn't gone all the way through. What do? I click on this needs changes. If I clicked on the page, it would just take me to the page in question, but I need to click on the needs changes, and then you'll see the notes that the sort of the moderator is put on that would be, and you know, for here I've just put in garbage just because I was testing it. I was wanting to see, does it generate an email? Do you guys get to see it? It doesn't do that, so it is about keeping an eye on it within your Wagtail admin console. And then that takes me back to the initial point of saying, look, this doesn't automatically update. You need to refresh this console once in a while. So you can either do it in the browser just by clicking the refresh button up top, or you can just click on the little Wagtail icon top left here, and that will just send through a refresh and give you a fresh display. I'm kind of just learning this workflow process at the moment, but I'm going to document what we've got and put it up on the Connect support pages. So you know, we can refer back to it, and I think I'll probably call it out at future forums as well once we've got this process more streamlined.
Thanks, Simon. There's Sarah, you've got a question about decommissioning date. So we have to draw a line in the sand, but let's pick up with you on what support we can give to you to make sure content is migrated. And I would also say the same to others. If you know you're going to struggle, please reach out and we can help. But we need to have a date to work to make sure that we decommission, because otherwise we will rumble on forever. And Connect is old Connect is on, as I've mentioned, an unsupported platform. It could fall over at any time, and we will have lost it. So we're here, we will support you, so let's pick up on that, Sarah,
actually,
offline.
While we're talking about that, that's a useful thing. When I'm going through Old Connect, again, I had the facilities team this morning where we realized that, just realizing that it's like, whilst we've got Old Connect here, one, the risk is there that old content is still being used and sort of accessed by staff where we don't want it to be accessed. So I've jumped ahead there, but what I've basically done, once they made me aware of it, I've put a redirection in place so that anyone looking for, as it is, it's a notification of works form on Old Connect. If they're clicking on that and they go to it, it automatically directs them to the content on New Connect. And I think that's actually going to be worthwhile during this period where we've got Old Connect still running. Anytime where we know that content has been properly migrated across, or we're happy that everything required for a group of information has been brought across, I think if you can let me know, and I'm going to proactively seek this out with you guys and the content owners as well, but if you can let me know, then I'll put redirections in place so anyone trying to look to it on Old Connect just straight away gets pointed to your content on New Connect. And that will kind of give us confidence that we're not maintaining these duplicate sources of information and people are perhaps responding to old, out-of-date information because they can still access Old Connect.
Thank you, Simon. What I'm going to talk about best practice, but this sort of does lead to content migration. What I don't want people to think of is we had all of this content on Connect and it's all going to come over, because you will have old documents, you'll have stuff that isn't relevant for teams. And I know that in itself is a bit of work to think about what comes over, but I really do only want the stuff that's up to date, the stuff that is relevant. It doesn't have to be an archive of documents. In actual fact, we don't want an archive of documents to come on to Connect. It should be the most relevant thing. Anything that's Merlin documents would already theoretically be in Connect because they're just Merlin document links rather than the documents themselves. But happy to pick up separate conversations on the content migration. Kind of linked to best practice, and I've touched on these, and I think we did talk briefly about them at training as well, the sessions that I went to. So, and I think since launch in January, actually, the way we've approached this is slightly different. So I know we talked about the structure of a page and there are expanders and all of those kinds of things. I think as we've gone forward, the way some of the pages appear, so if you've got an expander and there's a document within it, it doesn't appear under the expander, for example. So what I would say in terms of the structure of your page is to try and use headings, try and use bullet points, try and make sure that your content is simple language. And Wagtail has this lovely little I guess feature that tells you the reading age of the content that you're putting in. We should be aiming for, I think it's age 11 for it to be accessible. Quite often I'm copying and pasting information there that is 18 plus. I think we need to, all of us as editors need to be really aware of that. And make the kind of gold standard of aiming for a reading age of 11. Now, when we're using scientific or health language, that might not always be possible, but I think where we can, that is where we should be. The way that also in terms of when you're writing, not so much on your team pages, so when you're talking about what your team does and documents that relate to your team or information that relates to your team, I think there, with people that know the kind of thing that you're talking about, but I think when you're in the other area of the site where we talk about task based, so another member of staff who's not familiar with your team is coming to that page to complete a task of some sort. So it might be to fill in a form, it might be to request support, it might be to check something. Right, for that audience, what kind of language might they understand? What might they be looking for? Put the thing that they're looking for at the top of the page rather than right down the bottom of the page. The links to Merlin documents, really useful as well. I think they are being well used, and that is just that is for version control. And we don't want to have what we got to in Old Connect as versions of documents that were not the correct version. We should be using Merlin as the single source of truth for our trust policies and documents. And although I'm talking a lot about documents, we should avoid attachments. If attachments absolutely need to be on Connect, they should be accessible, and there are ways that we can check whether they're accessible. And when we talk about accessibility, it's about whether screen readers can access that PDF and know what is said. So it's things about, are headings marked as headings? Would a screen reader be able to check the structure of the document? Do images have alt text attached to them? Do tables have alt text attached to them? It is something that we are, there is more pressure generally on public services to make sure we're complying with these, and I think it's good practice. There won't be so many eyes on us from an internal comms point of view, from an internal staff only, but for our staff, for equality and diversity, we should absolutely be aiming that every document on the site is accessible. They're the kind of key things, I think, as we go through moderation and picking things up, but there might be things that we discuss further on editors forums, but just those to bear in mind at the moment. Tim, did you have a question on that?
Yeah, on Merlin, most of the documents I see on Merlin are PDFs of what I assume were Word documents, which is grand. In finance, we have lots of spreadsheets. Is an Excel template, like, for instance, I want permission to recruit a member of staff, is that something that could or should be on Merlin as the official version of the template, or is Merlin more about kind of words rather than an Excel file? I'm just wondering, because a lot of the things I'm uploading are Excel documents.
I believe that official trust forms should be on Merlin.
And that can include Excel
and that could
files
include Excel files. I think, did we have Excel files? There was something that came up as a possible Excel file for Merlin, wasn't there, Simon?
There is.
And the reason being, there might be old versions of that.
Oh,
and
no. I mean, we have that example. I was asking for a file yesterday, and everyone in the office had their own personal local copy of it. And it's like, well, fantastic, a great example, even within our department, it not working. It was just that I've never looked, but I didn't know if Merlin could deal with that. And if the answer is yes, then that's cool, because
it might be one. Let's pick that up with Claire and the document team, Tim.
It can. It would go through the same process as, you know, those PDF type documents as well, and it does sit in a directory on Merlin, pretty much called templates, and it's that kind of for that reason, exactly that. It's, you know, it's not a policy. It's not necessarily describing these things. It's this functional tool, and yeah. So I think yes, it does exist. There is that capacity, and I think any sort of future enhancements or developments of Merlin or that document management platform is going to take that requirement into consideration as well. So it will become even more robust. At the moment, I think the limit of what they can do is just provide a repository, a directory for it. But that, at least they still track it, and it is still a version controlled sort of source. So it's still positive from that point of view.
Thank you. I'm very conscious of time. We were going to end with a little bit of a kind of Jamboard session of what is going well with New Connect and what you'd like to see improved. But I know some people might need to drop off. So what I can do is drop in here. I don't know if everyone is familiar. I'll drop into the chat the link for the Jamboard. And then if I just share my screen, I can show you, for those that haven't used it before, how to use it. So hopefully you're seeing here a whiteboard. Looks a bit like a PowerPoint slide. There's two slides, one that is what's working well with New Connect and one what can be improved. And if you can add sticky notes, so on the left hand side here you'll see sticky note, and I'm trying to make up something that is working well. search is better. I'm going to delete my comment. And then you would save it there, and then it appears on the Jamboard. And then if you could do that for what's working well, and if you could do that for what could be improved, that would be fabulous. You can copy the link out and do this another time if you do need to drop off. And I'm happy to kind of answer questions as well. Tim.
Me?
Yeah, was that a legacy? Might have been a legacy hand.
Oh, sorry, I thought I'd taken it down.
No, it's fine. Will the sticky notes be identifiable? No. I think you join Jamboard as a like an anonymous thing, anonymous dingo, anonymous badger, anonymous giraffe. So Google might know who you are, Lizzie, but I won't.
I just meant in the sense that if we put something that you wanted to come back to us with any questions or clarifying, so if we come up with such and such isn't working well, or such and such is correct. I mean, if the positive ones would be good, but the ones that are slightly more negative, if you wanted more detailed feedback.
Yeah, if you want a follow-up with it, if you put, you know, Lizzie, contact me, or your email address, we can pick up with you. That'd be good. We are, and in terms of kind of improvements, I think we talked about this at training, we are gathering as we're going through and people are experiencing Wagtail from a user and an editor point of view. We are keeping track of things that we would like to improve in a list of future enhancements if we were to have the budget to do things, but that is all very budget dependent. So we are having to prioritise and think about where we can share costs with the kind of what we're implementing on the website as well. So that is all part of the mix, but we can have a wish list and then we can see where we get to. Tim, I don't know if you've seen Colin's comment on there from, I forgot we had a documents library expert here, Colin. Thank you. We're looking very silent. I'm hoping you're all Jamboarding. I've got that awkward need to like talk over it, which I'm gonna not do. Do shout if you've got a question though, and do feel free if you do need to drop off to do so. As I said, we will write up the notes from this and we will share the recording as well. Alison.
General question, Tony. You know, I'm just thinking about corporate identity because on Admin Academy, I go through basically things on Connect and apps and things, and I talk about the auto signature on emails, and you know, when we're talking about email etiquette. And I notice on the new Connect there isn't anything about the standard signature that we have on emails, you know, with the disclaimer link on it, which actually the disclaimer link's quite old. It says addenbrooks.nhs.uk thingy. And I noticed that's not under the new corporate identity. So is that something?
Have it. Oh, it's buried. It's buried under tone of voice.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's not very that's not very clear then. I wonder if that could be made a little bit more visible. And also, is that link still I haven't done it for ages, but is that link still relevant? The email disclaimer, is that still an up-to-date link on the bottom of emails? You know, when you just put it on your initial one.
I assume so. So the one it does link to our website.
It does. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's under data and privacy email disclaimer. So that I would imagine is all up to date.
Okay. So the email is under tone of voice. Okay.
Yeah, I've just included the link in the chat. So if you in Connect, if you search for email, This is revolutionary, having a search that actually works in Connect now. But if you search for email,
Fab.
it does come up. Or
Okay,
email
lovely.
signature.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I have started your virtual backgrounds as well, Alison.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Simon, anything else you wanted to pick up while we have this group of amazing editors here?
Not in addition. I don't know whether we sort of pick up any of the what can be improved whilst we're on chat, or are we going to sort of cycle back and respond to those? Or, you know, he said there's a wish list. I think there's a comment on sort of how much blue there is in the title bar. And I know, I think, you know, talking about the banners, the hero banners, as we call it, where it's up top of the page. So I know there is the flexibility of not having that blue there, but we're keeping it at the moment to have it consistent, and so it's a uniform look. I know that some of the initial pages that went out perhaps didn't have it, or some of them, certainly not all of them. But the blue header on each page is very large. So yeah, I think someone else has sort of posted the same thing. You almost need to scroll down before you get to the actual content. So I think in terms of at the moment, there's no plans to change our consistent approach in keeping a consistent header across all our pages. But I think that sort of design commentary or feedback that can be included in, you know, future decisions, future, if there is sort of design enhancements that happen down the track. I think certainly we talk about basically a backlog of work that we'll have with our vendor, and it does come down to money in a lot of instances. There's sort of like some core functional stuff that we have, which I imagine will be prioritized above that design element, but it's good to capture it, and we will. We've got an active sort of backlog and feedback tracker that we keep, and I think we'll put that on there and see. I know, and yeah, I recognize it and kind of understand it. And we do, there is part of the design consideration they talk about above the fold, which is, you know, comes from the press, where you've got a folded newspaper. What's that thing that most occupies the screen? And obviously we're, most of us at the moment, working off landscape screens, but increasingly, and users are looking at it on their phones, mobile devices. You know, are we happy with the real estate and the amount that's given over to, could be that hero banner, that title banner of blue that we've got up top. So yeah, I think we keep it in there. Banner is too big a greed.
Hey, did you have a question?
It's just a quick one. It's not really. I was just looking at the email sign off, silent and sign off, and I looked at the badges, and you've got a few on there. Are you going to be adding any others? For instance, I'm a speaking up listener, and it would be nice to have the banner with that on the bottom of mine. I've sort of written it in words, but it doesn't. You know, there are posters everywhere for the speaking up listeners. So is there going to be a badge for that as well, like all the other ones?
We haven't talked with the Freedom Speak Up Guardian about it, but I
Yeah.
don't see why not. So leave it with me, and I'll pick up with Claire.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you for your comment, Catherine. Conscious of time, so we'll let everybody go. Obviously, if you leave this call and think of something else you want to ask or check, please let us know. As I say, appreciate that the 30th of June isn't very far away, doesn't feel very far away, and people are under lots of other pressure. So please let us know if you need help with content migration. And yeah, just keep in touch. We'll put another one of these in the diary. We'll send around the recording. We'll send around the notes. But thank you all very much for your time and everything you're doing to help Connect be the best it can be, really, because I think staff are finding it a useful resource, and we want that to grow and grow. So thank you.